So one of the mistakes that players often make when they're dinking is their patterns. And what they try to do with this dink pattern is to continue to pull the player out wider and wider and wider. That wide pattern is not always the most effective pattern. I'm going to show you some dink patterns today that are going to help you to create more mistakes from your opponent. Hey everybody, my name is CJ Johnson, and here at Better Pickleball we help players over 50 live their best lives on and off the pickleball court. And I am joined, you've seen her on the channel before, my friend Susie Hartfield. She is an amazing pickleball player, even more of an amazing golf professional. But we're going to be out on the pickleball courts today, and we're going to talk about some of those dinking patterns that could be improved to get more errors from your opponents. So one of the most common patterns that you see up at the non-volley zone when we're in a dink game is the cross-court dink. I think for amateur players, that's the one that we default to the most often. And again, we try to pull the player out wider and wider to get a mistake. And the problem with that is normally what happens is by trying to do that, we eventually hit a dink wide, or because we're pulling the ball further from the net, we don't have enough energy to get the shot back over the net. We miscalculate that energy. A third mistake that often happens when we fall into this cross-court dink pattern is we're expecting it to come back in that direction, that we don't reposition ourselves to a more neutral position on the court, and we leave some space open between us and our partners, and our opponents take advantage of it. So those are some of the downsides of the cross-court dink, even though it's the most common pattern. Are you planning to attend a pickleball camp this year? If you are, grab our free guide, the 3 biggest mistakes pickleball players make when choosing a pickleball camp, and more importantly, how to avoid them. So the very first pattern that we can use, probably the simplest pattern, is let's go foot to foot of our opponent. So the first shot I'm going to hit towards their left foot. The next shot will come back, I'm going to hit it towards their right foot. Even though they may not have to move a lot with their feet, it's going to make them really alternate forehand to backhand. And the more that I can move them, the greater the chance of their mistake. Now, Susie obviously knows that I am moving left to right. So we're anticipating that movement pattern. But here's how that works in real time on the court. Your opponent doesn't know what you're doing. So when you're in a cross-court dink, they're able to anticipate that that ball is coming back cross-court. When you just simply start moving the ball just as small as their left foot and their right foot, they aren't able to anticipate your shots as quickly. All right, I've put a couple targets down on both sides. So let's start with the red target. So if you don't have circles, that's fine. Use a water bottle, use something that you have in your bag. What I've done is I've put this target down, and you'll notice it's about 12 inches inside of the sideline. That's plenty of space to stress my opponent without bringing the sideline into play. So I can still create a lot of stress by hitting that ball right in this area. So for purposes of the patterns that Susie and I are going to be working on, everything we want is going to be to this side of the red target. The second pattern we're going to do here is we are going to use the yellow target. Now the yellow target is the center, right? The center of the court. Most players will use the center of the court very effectively with ground strokes. Return of serve, ground strokes, put it right in the middle. You've probably heard the saying, middle solves the riddle. Well, of course it does, because players don't know who's going to take the shot. The same thing holds here. Players don't always know who's going to take the shot here in the middle, but you see far fewer players use the middle as a dink spot up at the non-volley zone. So Susie and I are going to start this drill, and what we're going to do is we're going to go one to the outside, then one to the center, then back to the outside. So here we go. So what you'll notice in this pattern is as we move the ball from side to side, we're moving our opponents around. And that's where mistakes normally happen. Anytime they're moving, we increase the chance that they might get some extra energy in the shot, which will create a pop-up, or that they might make a mistake with their footwork or their foundation, which is really kind of like the spacing between their paddle, their paddle arm and the body. When they make those types of mistakes, that's when the ball goes up for a put away or goes into the net. Whenever we're pulled out wide, the temptation, as I said, is to hit it back wide. And there's actually, in my mind, there are two better shots when you are under stress. The one we just showed you, if you're under stress, try and hit that ball back to the center of the court. It does have a little longer distance to travel, but it's going to buy you a little bit more time to get back to a more neutral position. Likewise, it might cause some problems for your opponents who takes that center shot. If that shot is not available to you, another option would be to simply hit that ball down the line, just to take that long shot and then to position your body so that you can hit that ball down to the line. Now, that is the most difficult shot to hit out of the two because the ball's coming to you at an angle, and now I'm going to take my paddle and I am going to change that angle. So it's a very difficult, or it can be, it's a more difficult option than the ball that's to the center, because the ball that's to the center is still following that same angle. I know that some of you are going to be afraid to hit that shot down the line or reset down the line because, as rightly so, you're going to say, you know, if a player can Ernie, that is the exact shot that they're looking for to hit an Ernie put away on. Well, here's my argument. Most players over 50, including the top pros over 50, don't Ernie. If you're playing against a player who has an Ernie, then the bailout is probably not a great shot. But if not, hit that bailout down the line to buy yourself some time and get back to a neutral position in that dink rally. So the next time you're in a cross-court dink rally, don't be afraid to change that pattern up. When you change that pattern up, you get your opponent off guard and you increase your chances of getting a mistake because of their movement patterns. Keep them guessing and you're probably going to win more shots because, you know, together we can train smart, live bold, and age well.